Number 4, the gear pump. Actually, this configuration is more properly called an external gear pump. The mechanism consists of two rotating gears, one driving the other, inside of an oval housing. At the suction inlet, fluid is trapped in a chamber between the gear teeth and the inside wall of the housing. The rotary motion moves the chamber from one side of the housing to the other side, and as the gear teeth rotate back into mesh, the chamber is closed, forcing the fluid through the discharge outlet. Another configuration of the gear mechanism is the internal gear pump. In this type of pump, an outer gear in a circular housing drives an offset inner gear. The gears are separated by a crescent. Fluid is trapped in one of two moving chambers, between the inner gear and the crescent, or between the outer gear and the crescent. As with the external gear pump, the rotary motion moves the chamber from one side of the housing to the other side, and as the gear teeth rotate back into mesh, the chamber is closed, forcing the fluid through the discharge outlet. Pump number 5 is the lobe pump. Lobe pumps function very similarly to external gear pumps, but the rotors are driven independently by external timing gears. The rotors have two or more lobes, and the moving chamber is formed between the outer surfaces of the lobes and the inside wall of the oval housing. As one of the lobes rotates back toward the center of the housing, the tight clearance between the lobe and the other rotor closes the chamber and forces the fluid through the discharge outlet. Pump number 6 is the vane pump. A vane pump rotor has slots in it for sliding vanes. Centrifugal force flings the vanes out to contact the inside wall of the circular housing, forming a sealed chamber. Since the rotor is offset in the housing, the vanes extend and retract during rotation. The chamber increases in size at the suction inlet, drawing fluid in. At the discharge outlet, the chamber decreases in size, pushing fluid out. The nice thing about vane pumps is that they automatically compensate for wear, because the vanes are constantly forced against the wall of the housing. Pump number 7 is the peristaltic pump. Peristaltic pumps contain fluid within a flexible hose. The hose is pinched between the rollers and the inside wall of the housing. As the rollers revolve around a center axis, they squeeze the fluid like a tube of toothpaste and move it through the housing to the discharge outlet. As with diaphragm pumps, peristaltic pumps do not require a seal because the fluid's completely contained inside the hose. They really excel at pumping high viscosity fluids with very large solids. I've even seen them pump whole cherries without significantly damaging them. Pump number 8 is the screw pump. Screw pumps can have a single shaft with large threads on it, but they usually have 2 or 3. The center shaft drives the other shafts like a screw or a worm gear. As the shafts rotate in the housing, fluid trapped in the gaps between the screw threads progresses along the length of the housing and is delivered to the discharge outlet. If you've ever seen an auger or a screw conveyor, this is pretty much the same thing. Our final pump is pump number 9, the progressive cavity pump. These bizarre little pumps may look somewhat like screw pumps, but they function differently. The rotor is shaped like a helix, and the housing is molded into the shape of a double helix. As the rotor rotates and oscillates inside of the housing, it forms a cavity which progresses along the length of the housing. Any fluid trapped in this progressing cavity is delivered to the discharge outlet.